Just very briefly, I think Mary has brought us to children's learning, and to point out that has been Melanie's focus, Melanie's research in terms of 19th century children's learning through science, and that's what brought you here today, probably. But of course, in the context of Leah Mannings. Thank you, Melanie.
So hello, I'm Melanie Keene. I'm a fellow at Homerton College. I've been involved with the Homerton Archive and some of the projects that we've been doing to commemorate, as someone said earlier, our greatest, well, certainly our greatest alumni. And wasn't that just wonderful? I think if you get an opportunity to read Leah Mannings' autobiography, then do. It's exactly that kind of empathetic, impassioned, personal take on what happened across the early 20th century and how she was such an instigator, a galvanizer of activities, and I really do recommend it as a really engrossing read. What really shone through for me is that real concern for everyone, the concern for improving the lives of the children that she was working with. And I think this is a thread that we can see running throughout her life. You've all been given a commemorative booklet, so please do take that away. That includes a greater perspective on Leah Mannings' life, and Peter was the great architect of that project, as so many others. But today I just wanted to focus, particularly given the context of the room we are standing in, on Leah Mannings' work with the children of Cambridge. First of all at the New Street School, then at the Open Air School, and then with those Basque refugee children, to give you sort of 3 generations of Cambridge children that she really had a direct impact on, and hopefully that we can trace lessons of that legacy as we go forward today. So that conversation with Principal Mary Allen, brought to life so evocatively, thank you, by Mary, came at the end of Mannings' time as a student at Homerton. She had arrived in 1906 to train as a teacher. By all accounts, she was a lively member, we can imagine, could you be anything but, a lively member of the local community, both within the college and also the wider Cambridge political and Christian Union scenes. She developed important student life skills, such as managing to go out without a chaperone, and picnicking, which I think in the early 20th century was very important to learn how to properly picnic across the river. By all accounts, including her own, she was not a very serious student. However, it's clear she did value those subjects which really directly related to learning about teaching and to those practices where she had the opportunity, even as a student, to go out into placements in the local area. At Homerton, she'd been learning from leading educators on new philosophies of education and a whole range of subjects, from hygiene to nature study to needlework, that would come back into her later practice. And as we've heard, this room looked very different over 100 years ago. The children were living in this very rich but clearly impoverished in other ways community. They were often coming to school underfed, ill-shod and overworked. Manning tells us she earned the princely sum of £65 a year to teach those up to 80 students. And at the time she remembered it as being a very suffocating kind of environment, with that smoking stove and the freezing coldness of that window. We can see in her work here she begins to bring together what had perhaps been a slightly separate political and social life and her teaching and studying life in her advocacy for her students, whether that is bearing the brunt of speaking out against malnutrition and the poor treatment of young people, lobbying for the reform in how school meals or milk were distributed, or even setting up what sounds like a fantastic after-school play club. Some of her work, however, she says, was not in that public realm, but was, as she terms it, in stealth. And those are those small acts of kindness that I think she tried to do for the children here from day to day. So, for instance, every month she remembers she spent part of her paycheck on treats for the children. There was a friendly local greengrocer. She would go around the corner and get whatever he could give her at really cut prices. So big boxes of broken biscuits or sweets or some apples and oranges that were perhaps not quite at their best. And apparently the children would sit in here waiting to see what's she going to bring back from the shop for this month. And then there'd be this, as you can imagine, enthusiastic outpouring of gratitude from her young, hungry charges. So one thing I think you'd like to really remember, as the donkey parade reminded us earlier, it wasn't all doom and gloom in New Street, despite the smoky stove. The children were taught things such as beautiful copperplate writing, they suffered through repetitious object lessons on camels and cotton, they were engrossed by bloodthirsty history lessons. Then, like now, they had music classes that consisted of 15 minutes of quote-unquote terrible scales before they got onto some cheerful songs. Melanie also remembered them creating what she called terribly funny crayon drawings that took some liberties with the proposed subject matter. She has a great story of a child who'd been told they had to draw the Garden of Eden from the Bible. Appropriate. They'd given a naked Eve a rather fancy hat with red and green feathers. I don't quite remember that from Genesis. So I think there's a sense that there was a real opportunity for children themselves to express their creativity within the constraint of the education system and what were admittedly straitened circumstances. She was in small ways really trying to bring joy, freedom and creativity into some of these children's lives. So after her work here at the school, obviously Leah Mannings continued to do work in the community, whether that be volunteer nursing in the war, activities with local trade, the Labour Party, who she would go on to represent as an MP. She, in her campaigning, brought together those interests in equality, in the rights of children, but also women's rights, for instance, opening Cambridge's first family planning clinic, and one of the first women justices of the peace. So we can see those circles of influence moving out from these local contexts, and they're starting to widen out at this point. She also moves on from this school to a new experiment, which is to create an open-air school. This is a very trendy movement, which drew on ideas that children had to be healthy minds and healthy bodies. And so they had these classrooms that were basically sheds on one side with 3 open sides that you could move around to catch the sun or shelter from the wind. And there's a real sense there that, as we see in her concern for the physical well-being of children, that was an important part of education as a holistic activity. Manning claimed that sun and air and 3 good meals a day, not always a given of course, but when they were there, they could work miracles. So I think we can really see this care for children following through into Manning's later work, obviously with the National Union of Teachers, where she really stresses her faith in the potential for individuals. She's concerned with these big political causes, but she sees that action taking place through interactions with individual people. I think that's a really important thing. Obviously, the amazing, galvanising effort of the evacuation from Bilbao of almost 4,000 children is what she is still remembered for, with great fondness and with great importance. And we had an incredibly moving event a couple of years ago at Homerton College where we heard testimony from some of those refugee children. Some of those children, as we've heard, did come to Cambridge, so they're perhaps our third group of children. They were housed in an old vicarage, I believe, at Pampersford, is that right? And they engaged in all kinds of activities, such as gardening, so it's, again, similar things that she was trying to bring into the children's activities here. Football, or even being taken away from that vicarage on long walks in nature, because, as you can imagine, a group of 30-odd young people tend to make rather a lot of noise. So there are many ways in which she took the lessons, I think, that she'd learned at Homerton and in her work with local Cambridge schools right through into the work with those evacuee children as well. So I think we can consider that whether it's those first ragged pupils here in New Street, whether it's the, I'm sure they were, sunburnt students of the open-air educational experiment, or whether it's those refugee children who are adapting to a new environment with playful, if rather loud, joy, I think we can also consider the generations of young people who have come after them as part of Leah Manning's children as well. They continue to find in her an inspiring figure. And I think with commemorations and events such as this, I feel confident at least that people in this room can continue to work and advocate for the children of Cambridge, as Leah Manning, I think, would have wanted.